This is how to fix a GE refrigerator that's not cooling and has the 0000 on the display blinking. Here's the model number on the one we're working on. And here's what the display looks like. When you open the door, you see the 0000 for freezer and fridge temperature, but it blinks and then it turns off. This is due to a faulty controller or motherboard which lives on the back of the refrigerator. It's very easy to replace. Here's a burn mark here behind that relay. This particular refrigerator was left open by mistake in the freezer compartment over about an 8-day period during a vacation, and the poor refrigerator was just trying to cool all the time and ended up burning up the relay. So we have to replace the control board. But while we're here, we're also going to check a few parts. We're going to take off this lower panel behind the refrigerator, and this panel is where you're going to find some areas that you can clean. So if you replace the control board and you don't clean a couple of these areas, you may end up having to replace the control board again, and they're kind of expensive. So we're just taking out these perimeter screws, and we're going to lift off this lower access panel. Sometimes on some models, these are kind of made of hard cardboard. This one's made out of metal. I'm going to separate this wire connector here, and if you wanted to, you could plug in the refrigerator and then look for voltage here. You should have 110 volts. That's one way you could see if the controller is sending voltage down to the compressor, this big black thing in front of me. And if it is, then you know your controller is actually okay. I'm prying off this little plastic cover that covers the relay and the thermal overload for the compressor. And I'm just using my knife. You can use a screwdriver to pry it off, and that'll give you access to the relay and the thermal overload. And those are hooked to the compressor just by friction. So you can use like a flathead screwdriver and pull them off. And then you can use your continuity tester to test them. This is the relay here. I'm putting the continuity tester into the two holes on the back of it. And I can see that it does have continuity, so I know that relay is good. And this is the thermal overload. I'm doing the same thing. I'm putting it in the one hole and then on the one spade connector, and it also is good. So we know that if voltage did come down from the controller, that it would start the compressor. So we know the controller is the culprit. So we're taking these screws out on the cover for the controller, and then we can disconnect some wires and get the controller out of there and replace it. Put a link in the description below for those two parts we just looked at, and also one for this controller. I'm kind of prying off the adhesive. I'm going to swing it out of the way, and this green panel here is the motherboard or the controller. It controls a lot of functions on your refrigerator, but if you get that blinking 0000 on your display, that's telling you that this controller is defective. So I'm pulling these wires off. You could take a picture of them if you'd like, but also these wires can only go on one way, so you can't really get it wrong when you're doing reassembly. But it's always good to take a picture with your camera. So I'm going to wiggle these off. You can use pliers to help you too, but basically just grab it and wiggle and pull them off. And then the controller is only being held in by 4 white plastic pins that go through the circuit board. And you can grab the circuit board and pull it towards you, or you can squeeze those pins a little bit with some needle nose pliers. Can make it easier. While I have this open though, I've got my vacuum set up. I'm going to clean out this grill here. Sometimes they call it a squirrel cage, but there's a fan that blows, and this is used to dissipate the heat that builds up inside the refrigerator. So if that's all clogged, your refrigerator can't get rid of the heat, and that's going to make it burn out the control board or burn out the thermal overload on the compressor. So while you're doing this job, it's really good to clean that thing that we call the squirrel cage. So we're just getting more of these wire connectors off. There's companies that will redo these boards for you if you send it in. It costs about $150, or you can get a brand new board. It's usually about $230. So I got the board off. I can see this one capacitor is bulging where that red arrow is pointing, and that's the one that controls the fan. So we know that that's trouble. But we also can see that one of the relays, these black boxes on the back of it, has some burn marks. So that's the one that probably overheated during the 8-day vacation when the door was slightly open. It just kept trying to cool all the time. So that's the main problem. But these boards don't last forever, and if you're getting some weird symptoms in your refrigerator, that's probably going to be the culprit. So I'm going to do a little bit more cleaning of that squirrel cage. This is a refrigerator brush. I'll put a link in the description below for this too. They're pretty cheap, but it allows you to reach inside here where the fan housing is, and you can clean a little bit better. So I like to use a vacuum cleaner and one of these brushes and some compressed air too, to get as much of the lint and dirt off of this squirrel cage as I possibly can. And then your refrigerator is going to be able to dissipate the heat a lot easier. And it's going to cool a lot faster and use a lot less energy, and be less likely for some of the parts to burn out, which again would be like the motherboard, or on the compressor, the relay, or more likely the little thermal overload. Those are both very inexpensive parts, but no fun to have to change them all the time. So you want to get this one as clean as you can. Cleaning the cover too, where the air passes through, making sure it has good airflow. That's a place where a lot of lint builds up. Then I'll go ahead and put that cover back in. I didn't have to replace any of those parts today because they all checked out fine. It was the relay and the thermal overload both had continuity, so we don't have to replace them. But it's common if your refrigerator doesn't cool that those need to be replaced. So we're just putting those screws back in. Make sure you put them all in because it's important that that panel is in position. And again, on some models, it's funny because it's actually made of a kind of a hard cardboard instead of steel. So here's what the board looks like. This is the relay that was causing the trouble. And you can see on the back that burn mark. That is the capacitor that was kind of bulging. But now it's back working, it's cooling great, and we got a fixed refrigerator. Hope this helps you. Watching our video, and please subscribe to our channel when you get a chance, and also click the little bell notification button so we can send you weekly videos on all the different ways of fixing appliances around your home and saving you lots of money. So thanks again for watching, and please also press the like button for our video if this was helpful to you. To contact me at the email listed below, which is scottthefixitguy@yahoo.com.